Okay. I'm excited. Okay. Hey, everybody. Julie Bayless here from Mountain View Wellness. Actually, I'm from Mountain View Wellness, but I'm actually broadcasting from True Cyclery in New Haven, Connecticut. I'm here with Karl Borne.
Nice job.
The owner and founder and CEO.
Yeah. Purchaser, customer service.
All of it.
All of it.
You're the one-man shop here. Yeah. And we're here to talk about bikes today, aren't we? Bikes.
'Tis the season.
'Tis the season. And let me just tell you about what inspired this interview. Okay. So it's springtime here in Connecticut. And I, first of all, need to admit that I am a wimp and a total baby when it comes to cycling when it's even a little bit cold.
Okay.
So I've been doing the Closer to Free ride for, this is going to be my 5th ride.
Wow. Century?
Maybe not the Century. Maybe.
You've already done it.
Maybe the 60-something or whatever.
That's the preferred mile.
So I met Karl when I did, I think it was my first ride.
It was, because that was the first meeting, was how to ride a Century.
I had no idea what to wear, how to change a tire.
Yeah.
That's still a little shaky, but whatever. Now I'm no longer a newbie.
Yes.
But I really, once I'm done with a ride in September, like my bike goes to bed and it hibernates, and I don't bring it out until I begin to see the sun and feel warm. And I bought a pair of long leggings, cycling leggings, with the intention of, I'm going to wear these when it's cold. And those leggings have never seen the light of day. I'm like, I should really just sell them on eBay or something. I'm never going to wear them.
It's a real problem. And it gets really cold.
It does.
Tights are one thing, but,
No, you got to, cover your feet and wear gloves. No. That's not for me. So, now that it's springtime in Connecticut, I'm really excited about my bike. I go out and visit her in the garage and pet her and say, I'm going to take you out sometime soon. And I know that people in my neighborhood and people all around Connecticut are doing the same stuff. They're going in, this weekend, next weekend, people are going to be going into their garages and kind of looking at the bikes and deciding what stays, what goes, how to prep the bike for spring. So let's start off with that, Karl. What are some things that we can do, like when we start pulling out the bikes? What do we need to check on to make sure that it's actually going to be safe on the road?
So you can actually use it?
Yeah.
So I should have wheeled in one of the bikes I picked up today, because it's a classic version of that bike. And you wheel it out and it squeaks and makes funny sounds and it's covered in dust and the chain is thick with fur and rust and all kinds of things. So it does really depend on the situation. So if you push that bike out and it's like the wheels aren't moving, or call your bike shop and get a professional tune-up. You'll be so much happier and you'll want to ride the bike more. So without a doubt, that's step number one.
If it's too noisy coming out.
Right. If you pick up the wheel and spin it and it doesn't go or slows down, and or if things just look thick and gunked up and slow, it might be worth bringing. You don't have to get a tune-up, but it might be worth just having a professional look at it and say, okay, you're good for the season. Not just because it'll work good, but it'll get you fired up to ride more because your bike's operating as it should.
Right.
You're not feeling sluggish on the bike. But it's spring, so everybody's already doing that. So if you call the bike shop and they say, no problem, we'll talk to you in 3 months when we have a window.
Exactly.
Then you might want to say, well, all right, what can I do? So that's probably what you're asking, right? So what you can do. So the first thing would be, what I would do is just clean the bike with a rag and rubbing alcohol or even water. WD-40 is a little bit dicey because it removes grease, and you don't want to do that necessarily on the chain and stuff. And so when you clean it, you can sort of see if anything's for whatever reason on old bikes, sometimes the cables stretch out. Nice that we have a bike here, I guess.
Oh, how convenient.
And so the cables can get cruddy and gross, and that can cause the derailleur to move if it's a bike with a derailleur. And all those things can just sort of, if you pedal the bike, it can make horrible sounds and things don't operate as they should. So as you clean, you can sort of figure these things out as you're working. Do the tires need air? That's a big one. Tires lose air over time. It's unlikely that if you put the bike away without a flat tire, it's unlikely that it can't just be pumped up. Some people call and they say, I've got a flat tire, and they bring it in, and we pump it up, and it just needed air. So you'll definitely need to put air in the tires. That's a big one. Depending on the bike, it usually says somewhere on the tire what the PSI is, and you can pump it up to whatever it suggests. And then once the tires are pumped, then you can actually get on it and see what works and what doesn't. Oftentimes, if the cables do get cruddy over time, and you squeeze the brake levers, they're really hard, and the brakes don't grip like they should. Obviously, you want brakes to work very well, and so whether you clean the cables or just squeeze it back and forth, you can. Most bikes have, especially if they've been dusty sitting in the garage, they'll have little brakes that sit right here in the rim, and you can give them a touch of WD-40 or even just some kind of lube just to see if they can bust free of all the rust and the grease and the funk that slows everything down. So brakes, now you got your tires pumped up.
Yep.
You checked your brakes, they're working okay. Then the chain is always, so the chain's sticky because it's got lube on it, and if you don't touch it and it's in a dusty environment, or if you're in and out of the garage, you're getting firewood or whatever, there's wood chips all over it. You could absolutely clean that with whatever degreaser you have. If you have WD-40, you can use up a common degreaser like Simple Green or something like that. You can do that. Some people squirt the degreaser in a rag and hold it on the chain and pedal it around. You can squirt it right on the chain, and then the key is to blast it with whatever the degreaser is, and then remove as much of that degreaser as you can, and then let it dry out before you even lube it, because degreaser and lube fight each other. You don't want that. So blast away, but then dry it off and try and I just use old sweatshirts and t-shirts and just grab onto that chain and slowly pedal around so that you're not dragging your hand into the gears and stuff. But that really, it cleans and it degreases, and so you sort of get back to square one. And then you lube your chain with you can get lube at a bike shop, or you can get it on Amazon or wherever, and then you lube the chain. And then, very important for the listeners, when you lube your chain, you don't want any more than one little eye droplet on each link, and then, just like the degreaser, you got to take that off because it's too much. And over-lubing causes all kinds of problems too. So take it off with a rag, 1 or 2 pedal strokes through. And you're good.
That's good.
So that's probably good. That'll get you on the bike path. That'll get you going.
Okay.
And then as you ride, problems can reveal themselves through squeaks and creaks and knocks and all kinds of things. And then you might need to call it.
That's when you need to, when it's making too many noises and it's hard to ride, take it in to the professionals.
Correct. Noises always mean things are wearing premature, or they're wearing on each other like they shouldn't be doing, and that causes problems and wears things down. And you don't want to do that for a whole season, because then it's more. The longer you wait, the more expensive it is.
Sounds like the body.
Just like health and wellness.
All right.
And tune-ups are like, I assume, $75 to $150, depending on what shop you go to. Kids' bikes might be different on that. I don't do much with kids' bikes.
Great segue.
No?
Great segue. Let's talk about kids' bikes, because I know a lot of people are going into their garages, pulling out the bikes and saying, Johnny, get on it. And then it looks like the bear on the tricycle thing going on. How do you know when you need to get a new bike for your kid?
I guess that's probably a deep question. So if they like riding the bike and they want to ride the bike, some signs that they have outgrown the bike are, for one, almost every bike has a seat post that can be adjusted up or down, but there's a limit to how far that seat post can go before it falls out or before it's not safe. Every seat post has a little line inscribed on it that says minimum insertion point. And if you're above that, you can break you don't want to do that. You can break the frame, you can break the post, all kinds of problems. And so the seat post is intentionally adjustable, so the growing kid can raise that thing up, and it can keep fitting as the saddle goes up.
Right. So how do you know? Because I've seen the kid with the knees that go up here. Are there any sort of points of alignment that you can kind of tell?
Yes.
People
for sure
what their kids should look like on a bike.
Yes, I think. In general, for kids' bikes, it's a little less important unless they're doing great distances. If they're hopping on a BMX bike, running around town, they're not going to do huge damage if the seat's too high or too low. But in general, this is not going to help anybody. But when you're sitting on the saddle and your feet are on the pedals and you're pedaling around, you don't want your leg to be hyperextended. You don't want it to be so tall. You don't want the saddle height to be so high that your leg hyperextends when it gets to the bottom.
Super straight,
right. You don't want
and then even straight. Pointed. That's too
That's
high.
Bad. You don't want it too low, so that when you pedal, you're not only, it has nothing to even do with like your actual efficient power or pedal stroke, but you can't even sit on the saddle because you're pushing yourself off the saddle as you pedal when it's too low. Those are the extremes, obviously, and as you get closer to the right height, those things go away. And so you don't want, for the too high saddle, your hips are going to slide over the saddle as you're pedaling, right? To reach that pedal at the bottom, you got to. So your hips should be totally still, just your legs going around. So you can lower it to that, or you can raise it to that if you can think of it. But what a lot of people do is they'll sit on the saddle, stretch their leg out to the bottom of the pedal stroke, so it's the longest measurement that you can have, and sort of see if you have some bend in the leg, but not locked out. You should be able to lock it out, but you don't want it to default to lock out.
All right.
You can also call, same story. You can call your local bike shop and say, "Hey, I just need a fit. It's a kid's bike. It shouldn't take very long.
Right.
I'm sure they don't charge what a professional fit would be."
Okay.
So there's that too.
And this is a little shout out for you, Karl. Getting your bike properly fitted, especially if you're like a weekend warrior like me, that's like, oh, I'm going to do a century ride. Dude, get that shit fitted.
It's surprisingly important.
It's massively important.
We changed your stem. I think your saddle height.
We did some tweaky things where I rode to Guilford, I think, the week before, and I was a mess. Like,
that's right.
I
Ready
just
to
felt
quit.
like my butt was going to fall off, and I was ready to quit. I was like, I can't do the century.
I remember that
blah,
now.
blah, blah. And I realized that somebody had messed up my seat. I'm not going to blame anybody, but my bike was not adjusted to my body as it had been before. And I went and saw you, and we got it fitted to me, my exact proportions, and now that bike is mine.
That's all I like to hear.
Although it might be given to my daughter,
well,
but that's okay.
She's growing up.
She's growing up,
get a bigger bike.
Yeah. But super important if you are a weekend warrior and you're deciding to do a longer ride.
Fitting's really, it's an important thing. And it can make, some people are like, well, my bike, it's not for me, it's uncomfortable. Sometimes you can make a bike that you have that you don't like an awesome bike, and you might not even know that it can fit and be super comfortable. Mm-hmm. Save yourself some money.
Yeah.
And there's no bikes to buy anymore. So.
Oh, and you are amazing because that is going to be my last question.
Oh, okay.
Where the heck do you get a bike these days? It's hard.
It's really hard. So we're lucky in New Haven. So there's the Devil's Gear is a great bike shop.
Mm-hmm.
Amity Bike Shop is a great bike shop. College Street, I actually don't know them, but I've heard that they're a great bike shop.
Mm-hmm.
But I know the other two, and I talk to them periodically, and it's been really hard for them to get bikes in. So it's not that they don't get them; it's just in little spurts. And so if you're what I would recommend doing is calling those shops and saying, "Hey, I'm interested in a road bike or a mountain bike. I'm 6 feet tall or whatever. Here's my budget. Let me know if something comes in." Because I think what they're doing is basically saying, we've ordered X amount of bikes from all these different manufacturers. Most of them are already accounted for, like they're already sold. Mm-hmm. But there are occasional things that show up and they don't have a buyer, but there's a million people clamoring for them. And if they have your information already, it's a surefire thing. Mm-hmm. So start with your shops. Obviously, there's eBay and Craigslist, which is, pick your poison. Mm-hmm. But there's bikes there. And I think right now prices are artificially high because they know that they can
sell
them.
For sure.
I sell custom bikes, which of course are lifetime bikes, and it's not for your average weekend warrior necessarily. Mm-hmm. They're still making them, so you can still buy custom bikes, but that's not for everybody either. Mm-hmm. And so it's a problem. You come to the Bradley Street Bicycle Co-op, they have used bikes that they tune up, and they're $100 to $300 or so. So that gets a lot of people weekend warriors on bikes. Mm-hmm. But if you just want like a Trek or a Specialized or a Giant or a Cannondale, I don't know what to do. They're not there. I mean, so from what I understand, it's just going to be piecemeal for a year or more.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not most up to date on these things, but it's a real problem. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a great answer other than let people know that you want one, and especially the shops because they'll want to sell you one. So.
Right, because they're like, oh, we've got a buyer here.
Yeah.
So call your local shops, tell your friends.
Yeah. The more people know, the better, for sure. And if you want a used bike, obviously, then it's sort of easier to deal with because you can just shop online. And I'm sure that, I have not looked at Amazon or the gray market for bikes. I'm sure there's people selling bikes.
Yeah.
But just, I would say, make sure they've got a great return policy and there's someone on the other end of the phone that can help if there's a problem. Right. Because they're expensive.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I don't have a great answer for that.
No, that was good. Okay. Steps to take.
Tune your bike up.
Tune your bike up.
And be patient. Oh, that's another good one, too. This probably gets too heavy for... This is bike nerd stuff.
Go.
But, all right, so there's a million bike components, but the big ones are Shimano and SRAM and Campagnolo. And the trouble is they are all getting, the ships are all arriving at different times, and they only have some parts, not all the parts. And so if you do want to get a bike, you might have to be very if you want a bike today, you have to be flexible both in budget and what components you are happy with. Because a lot of people are, I'm a SRAM guy or I'm a Shimano guy.
Oh, yeah, no. I think that's above me and above a lot of people. Like, I didn't even know what that was.
Then that's going to help. That's going to help tenfold.
I was like, I want the pink bike.
Perfect. Well, that's actually a good point, too, because then it's like, sorry, we've only got the brown one. And you're like, well, do I want a bike? Right. There's going to be a lot of that moving forward. A lot of, a real problem.
A lot of people on bikes that they don't really care for the color, but they're just going to deal with it.
They want a new
or
bike.
Components or whatever those are. That's fine. I do know about components now.
Yes, now you do. Well, you're an expert now.
Well.
But it'll be interesting. So over the next year or two, all these people have started cycling, and cycling is great, as you and I know. So
we know this.
A certain percentage of them are going to be sold, and they're going to be riding those bikes forever. But I think a lot of them are going to be like, this wasn't for me, or it was too cold, or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if the used market starts to flood in the next year and a half or 2 years, which could be interesting.
Yeah, so I would say wait, but no, don't wait to get an awesome bike. Just do it because cycling is freedom.
That's right.
Yeah, good for the soul.
It's good for the soul.
Yeah.
And if you want a lifetime bike,
you
come here to True Cyclery. We'll set you up on a custom rig.
Yeah, and so who should go to you? Who are your people, Karl? Because they're not weekend warriors.
They're not weekend warriors. I use the term cycling enthusiast.
Oh yeah,
like this is their thing, right? So I sort of picture it like, golfers who they go to the country club. That's their thing. They just golf. They buy new golf clubs every 2 years or whatever. They got the newest ball. They think about what makes this ball better than the other ball.
They're into components.
They're into components, right? Different shaft stiffnesses and things like that. So for me, it's like the people who, to a certain extent, it's people who have ridden their whole lives, like riding. They sort of know what they want. They've never had exactly what they want. There's always, when you buy a stock bike, if it's not pink, you don't get a pink bike. If it doesn't have SRAM, you want SRAM. So there's a lot of, there's a million things that you have to sort of, what's the word? Not sacrifice, but
compromise.
You have to compromise. Good word. And so what's nice about custom bikes is there's not much compromise. You just say what you want, and we figure it out. So it's a mixture of a perfect fitting bike in the color you want, with the components you want, with the it's got room for growth. When you get older, you can make some changes. It's not, it's going to fit you today, next year, 10 years from now, all those things. So it's a lifetime bike. And so that's what I love about cycling is instead of buying a bike every 2 years, hoping that you get the right one, you buy one bike, which of course has, it's a chunk of change up front, but then you got a bike for life. You don't even need any more bikes. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So
quality.
It's quality. Quality's real. And they're made in America, reasonably local. All the bikes I sell are made in Boston.
Yeah, and a lot of your clients are local too.
It's been great. So many people. And the more that people buy bikes from me, the more they see them in the world, so the more custom becomes just a normal thing, which is a big hurdle. Because, nobody wants to, I'm not special. I don't need anything built for me. When really, you can get a custom bike for less than a Trek or a Specialized, and it's built for you, and it's no compromise. It's great.
That's awesome.
So people should call anytime if they're interested.
Yes, we will have your contact information here now that they know that you're a smart guy. And
obviously.
You are a professional. And you are a bike enthusiast also.
I'm a bike enthusiast too.
So you are calling all your other bike enthusiast people. Yeah, awesome. It's been great to see you grow too.
Thanks. You made me early on. You knocked on my door. Remember?
I did knock on your door.
Out of nowhere.
I'm scrappy. I'm scrappy that way.
That's what I knew.
Hi, I'm Julie Bayless. I have a friend who knows you.
We're riding 100 miles.
Tell us what to do.
That's right. How?
That's perfect.
That was great. I'm so glad you did.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Karl. This was
cover everything?
Awesome. We covered everything.
Okay.
And we're at 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Fantastic.
One thing I'll point out that you might mention, the thing is, because I don't have anything to buy here, I do have a lot of time to email and to talk to people. And so if people are like, I'm not sure I want to spend, $7,000 on a custom bike, but I know I want to spend more than $100, but I don't know what to do. I talk to people like that all day long.
So you're super helpful.
It's probably not true, but I think of myself as unbiased because if you're not going to buy something from me, what do I care? Right? So I'm happy to, where you buy it, I mean, I'm happy to sort of go through bikes and what's cool, what works, what you might want to avoid, which shops you might pair with better than others, and things like that. And so if people just want to talk about bikes or, if they have a problem that they want to discuss before they, open up their wallet, by all means call, email, whatever.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. That's good to know. I mean, I knew that.
You knew that.
But I don't think they knew that.
They don't know that. Most people don't even know who I am.
Well, now they do.
That's right. We're going to take over the world in 10 years,
Watch
but we're
out.
only at year 6.
Watch out.
That's right.
Okay, Karl, thanks so much.
Julie.
So after this, everybody, we're going to enjoy some local lunch. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie. This is so fun.
You're welcome. That's how
Thanks
I
for
pay
thinking of
people
me.
in sandwiches.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for the interview and the information.
Sounds good.
All right, hope you all enjoyed it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Here we are at True Cyclery, and Karl, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get to it?
Sure. I grew up in Wallingford, Connecticut many years ago, and left in 1996 to go to college and sort of worked my way around the country in Colorado and ended up in Boston for like 12 years, working for a company called Seven Cycles, the world's largest custom frame manufacturer. And I worked there for a decade and helped the owner of that company open a bike shop up in Lexington, Massachusetts. And I thought, oh man, and I've worked in shops my whole life. And I thought, man, I could get into this again. I could do something like this. And so I talked to Seven Cycles about it and said, I'm only going to do it if I can sell Seven Cycles bikes because they're the best bikes in the world. And he was like, sure, let's do it. And so moved back home and moved into New Haven, which from 1996 until today has really changed. New Haven is really, it's just the coolest place, which I knew when we moved in, but I'm so happy to be here. And so I've been doing this I think this is my 6th year here. And it's still fun and so neat. I mean, it's a different take on bike shops, as you know, but maybe your viewers don't know. It's like you're almost seeing the whole shop.
This is the shop. We're in it.
The camera's on the window at the street.
It's outside.
It's like it's on Bradley Street. So it's just a little 11 by 11 showroom that I'm fortunate to have run into John Martin, who I don't know if you've talked to him at all, but
we're going to talk about the Bradley Street Co-op.
Yeah. Which is totally serendipitous that him and I connected. We have mutual friends. We both lived in Boston at the same time and met here the first year that I lived here and the first year that he moved back. And so he rents a small space out for me, but I get to help out over there, and he comes in here, and it is really a series of fortunate events. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.